Well, to end what we have done in the last part, just again note that um, an exploitation exists only in case of the mainstream sense, or in mainstream sense at least. The wage a worker kind of, you might say, it's normative, but I mean in case of exploitation, the definition is made through normative way, deserves to get is the wage which is equal to the marginal product of labor, which is interesting because if the same worker works in a company with 4 workers, the marginal product of the labor in that case is higher, so wage he deserves is high. But if number of workers increase, the marginal product of labor will decrease. Again, the worker's productivity, worker's personal characteristic is exactly the same, but the wage that worker will deserve will basically fall in that case. But anyway, according to mainstream definition, worker is only exploited if the wage given to him is less than the marginal product of that value of the marginal product of that labor, of course, not marginal product in quantity, but marginal product per times the price. And if worker is given a higher wage compared with the marginal product he or she gets, in that case, the worker is exploiting the capitalists. In Marxian sense, I mean, worker will only exploit capitalists if, well, he might also exploit the capitalist. That's the case when basically he gets more than the value he adds to the product. I mean, the very average product of value of the average product of labor is basically the value added to the inputs of production. And in Marxian sense, capital costs are also that type of costs. And if value of average the wage is higher than the value of average product of labor, the compared with price, basically we can recalculate it using price. In that case, the exploitation, the workers might be exploiting the capitalists. So this is how exploitation in Marxian and mainstream sense is defined. Let's continue. So, to sum up the meaning of the model, employers only employ new workers if wage they pay them is lower than the extra income they earn by hiring them. Extra income an employer earns when she hires a worker depends on additional units of good produced by that worker and the price of that good. Additional units of that good produced by each additional worker fall as number of workers increases. If the price of that good is fixed, extra income an employer would earn by hiring an additional worker will decrease as you hire more worker. In this case, employer will continue to hire worker until extra income brought by additional worker falls below the wage level. If at any point it's possible for the marginal product of labor may increase, maybe the employer could wait that point, but if that's not the case, in that case, as I said, the employer will continue to hire worker until the extra income brought is below the wage level. Agricultural labor case, that's actually an interesting, as I said, case of demand, and we have already talked actually basis of it, but the basically first the work needed is in specific periods, harvest and basically planting. In harvest, as far as I know, there is no more need for labor, and that makes actually and in other periods you don't need that much of labor. So traditional workers, especially when you pay them a low level of price, are not that much satisfied with the fact that they are only employed for a short period of time. So especially when you want to get the cheapest labor force, I mean, that labor force should not be able to work anywhere else, or the other potential places should provide that worker even cheaper or worse working conditions. So that's one thing. The other thing is agriculture is a critical thing, critical product, critical sector. I mean, if food prices rise up, food prices might very well, I mean, that might very well harm the whole society, especially if the critical food items are becoming expensive. Even at the beginning phases, I mean, that might mean that workers in general, especially the lowest workers with lowest wage level, need to pay more to just get out of the starvation. So keeping food prices low is also something critical for the economic system. So how can this be done? One way is actually encouraging the farmers operate as family farmers. I mean, getting help from their immediate family, sons, maybe even cousins, basically. But those family farms, I mean, even they might be not that much efficient, and even for them, it might be more, I mean, appealing to go to city and work in a factory instead of working in a farm. So, in order to encourage them, state might support them by maybe fixing the price of the products at a relatively high point and buying the extra product from them, or subsidizing the price, which means actually for every food bought from the farmers, state might pay part of the price, or subsidizing some inputs, like for example machinery. They might provide machinery at cheap prices, pay part of the cost of machinery or fertilizers. And even protecting the farmers from international competition by closing them, preventing import of certain goods. So this might be one option. Another option is actually state might allow agriculture sector to get relatively cheap type of labor power. For most of the, I mean, for a significant portion of 19th century, slavery existed in the agriculture sector of the United States mainly. And the main problem for its evolution was how would the agricultural system in the South will go on if basically slavery doesn't exist anymore. And that agricultural system has found another source of cheap labor when Mexican immigrant workers were brought to the United States not to become citizens but just to work at the agriculture. And that program was abolished in 1960s, but many Mexican workers continued to come to the United States without proper legal documents, and many of them work in the agriculture. And I have read an article which basically tells that there are many people in the right-wing politics of the United States which are against this immigration from Mexico without proper documentation, and especially they also don't like the employers who employ them, including the farm workers. And they had actually organized some student young groups to go to the South, U.S. South, with big farms, and make the young people work there. But the work is really hard, and it is really hot, and also, I mean, humid, much more humid than Turkey, certainly. I mean, and many European countries also. Some Middle Eastern countries might be that hot, but it's also humid. Middle Eastern countries are at least dry, and you need to work in that environment, in agriculture, in open fields. And also the working conditions are not that much present. I mean, you are not that much provided protected equipment. I don't know, even something that will save you from sun heat, except some primitive maybe precautions. So they could not work more than 1 week. I mean, and they say, I mean, this work is much more difficult than I thought it is. So that's how United States at least partially solves the agricultural worker labor force problem. Turkey solves it by, I mean, developing countries mostly have a population which is normally not that is not able to find jobs easily, and during the harvest season, that population actually goes to the villages and sometimes by walking, sometimes with very, very unsecure ways, like you see here. This is Turkey, I believe, and work in the farms at the very point when the farms need the demand, and basically when they don't need that demand anymore, farms just send them away. So in developing countries, you have actually a desperate labor force which is willing to work in the farms. So this is basically the case of agricultural workforce, which is one of the, as I said, interesting cases in the global labor market or labor economics cases. Now we can start with the long-run analysis. So in the case of long-run analysis, we have technology fixed, prices fixed, and we assume the perfect competition, which means the companies are not able to influence prices, and prices are anyway constant here. However, the company can get as much as capital. Now the company is able to get capital also, in addition to worker, in order to increase the production level. So our analysis is very similar to the indifference curve analysis. So we have, I mean, in case of indifference curve analysis, our individual had two different things, which gives himself or herself utility, which was leisure time, and the income, which will translate in return to the commodities. Now our company is willing to increase with a fixed budget, fixed amount of money it is able to spend for production, as many units of product as possible, which we will basically just get to the market again. This is a mass production, and he will produce as many units as possible. And in perfect competition markets, the company is confident that they will be able to find some buyers for that product. Again, the company will have a budget line, and with that, the budget line will show different combinations of labor and capital the company is able to get. And now we will have isoquants representing different quantities, and on an isoquant we will see different combinations of labor and capital, which is able to produce that fixed quantity. And we will see with the highest level of isoquant, the highest level of quantity, the company can reach with the available budget. And not surprising, if you remember the result of the indifference curve analysis in the labor supply part, the isoquant that represents highest quantity the company can produce with a fixed budget is the isoquant that to which the company budget line is tangent to, which means basically it should intersect with it at only one point, which means the line cannot go above the isoquant, which means it cannot produce more than the quantity that isoquant represents. Anyway, we will go more detail on it. Well, this is, for example, for 100 units, you may be able to produce 100 units of bread using 1 worker and 50 units of capital, or 60 workers and 2 units of capital. In that case, 1 worker and 50 capital and 60 worker and 2 units of capital will be bought on the isoquant representing 100 units of bread. Anyway, we will continue to this in the next part.